Hello, 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 dear friend. I just switched up the vibe, getting cozy because we are about to have some real talk today. As you can see, pretty much you could do the same. Join me and have my notes here because we're going to be talking about why are we lonelier than ever? Even though we're always connected. Like, this is the first time I have this set up, but I really want to be comfortable because I don't know. I just feel like chatting. And I think a lot of us are having those thoughts, but then no one talks about it. The L word, loneliness, is that huge elephant in the room. And there's almost like a massive shame around it. So many people are feeling it, but people are embarrassed or ashamed to acknowledge that. So I wanted to talk about it today because, hello, I mean, I talk about this all the time. Let's dive in. Let's get comfortable. I have my notes here. I know, oh, I'm supposed to find this magical way of putting my notes in the back and making it seem like I don't have any notes and talk to you seamlessly and make things look perfect. But what can I say? A girl just has to keep it real. So if you see me peeping up my phone here, no, I'm not scrolling Instagram. It's literally because I want to keep this organized. Otherwise, I could be talking about this all day long and be all over the place. So I organize my thoughts here in a, you know, great manner so we could dive into this topic in a way that makes sense. So you scroll through your phone, you watch everyone's life, you know what everyone's doing, what they're eating for breakfast, where they went on vacation, who's their new boyfriend, girlfriend, how their house is looking like. You know, you reply to messages, you press a couple of like button, you feel the dopamine, but at the end of the day, you still feel lonely inside. Now be careful. I want to start this episode today by saying I'm not talking about emptiness. This is something that really annoys me. I feel like they tend to associate the second someone says they're lonely, the first reaction is to equate that with that person feeling empty. These are these are two totally different things. Now, one can come with the other, but it doesn't mean that one automatically equate the other. Yes, some people feel lonely and they feel empty inside, but a lot of people feel lonely, yet they have a very lively life and they don't feel empty. They're not looking for someone to be their oxygen mask. It's just that we're humans. We can optimize everything. We can self optimize everything. It's kind of, I feel like, the universe, the creator, the light, however you want to call it, the higher intelligence kind of, it's the safety valve that they installed inside of us to make sure that we still stay together, because us humans, we are inherently selfish. We're inherently focus. Our ego, we always have a tendency to think about ourselves. That's just how it is. You are in your body, so you can relate with yourself better. It takes a lot of effort for us to go, externally, to think about, our brothers, our sisters, to put ourselves in their shoes. So I really do think that it's a smart design. Whoever created us, designed us, some people call it God, the light, the universe, whatever. Semantics, I don't want to get carried on that today. But the higher power, I really do think it's a smart design to make sure that we circle back to what matters. We circle back to humans. We circle back to, you know, love. We circle back to togetherness. We circle back to oneness. I really was thinking about that a lot lately. I should probably make another episode, especially on that, philosophizing on that, because I find this concept fascinating. And in biology, in clinical therapy, the psychologists, the big names, the Carl Jung, all of these people, they were one of the first modern, psychotherapists, therapists, however you want to call them. They were one of the first people, or one of the more influential people to acknowledge that to dive really deep into like the human needs and how we're made up. And I find it fascinating. It's just not something, and I think that's something that I had to learn myself, and I'm slowly acknowledging, because I tend to be the kind of person, all right, how do I fix this? How do I fix this by myself? Which is not good either, because you think we can take, it's not good to take anything to the extreme, but it's easy for us to do that once we've been hurt too many times, to just be super self-reliant. And I think this is interesting what we see happening with loneliness. So this is why I wanted to add this tangent, because I'm not talking about the type of loneliness where people, you know, feel empty inside. If that is you, it's just not the type. That's just not the focus of today's, episode. If that is you, then I really encourage you to really go do some, like, self exploration, learn to be better with yourself. Because ironically, if that's something that you struggle with, um, even finding you know, a great partner, you always gonna have a tendency to feel that emptiness inside. So this is something that can be resolved. It's like something that you have to face and tackle yourself. But today I really wanted to focus on the other side, the people who are feeling very comfortable. They've done a lot of hard work. They love themselves. We're not perfect. We're all humans. We all have bad days. But feeling really comfortable with yourself. You're not looking for someone to save you, because a lot of my friends, when they're talking about relationship, it's like they're looking for that one person to make the ache go away, the pain go away. I'm not talking about that. I really do think that if you need help to work with a therapist for that, I deeply encourage you to go down that path. Because again, if that's how you're feeling, I'm saying that with all my love, with all my empathy, a relationship is not going to save you. You will still feel that emptiness inside, even in the best relationship. So I do encourage you to go down that path. Things can get better. You can learn. You can explore yourself. You can learn to fall in love with yourself. It's a beautiful, beautiful journey. But today we're just going to talk about the baseline way that humans are wired. It doesn't matter how much comfortable, how much you love yourself, how much you have a very full life. you know, I do think, like I said, I do think this is the way the creator created us. It's to make sure that we don't all just like live on a separate island all by ourselves. It's that safety mechanism, that blueprint that is wired in us to make sure that we still find ourselves together. I think it's brilliant, especially like I said, for someone like me who tends to be, I'm gonna fix it all by myself. But then it's just like, no. For example, I feel so grateful. Living a full life and all of these things. I believe that my inner world is very, very colorful, but it's just that I also suffer from like loneliness lately. And this is like a very new feeling for me, to be honest, which is why I'm so fascinated by the topic and I'm constantly researching it. It's not the emptiness loneliness, it's the loneliness that you really happy with your life, you know thankfully you're feeling super grateful for that. It's just that you ready to take the next step. You're ready to start sharing all this love with someone else. You know what I mean? And that could also be like through many ways. It could be like through a community. And I believe that, you're not supposed to stop your life and be miserable and wait for like this mythical perfect partner that's going to come and, do life with you. In the meantime, I think we all have a responsibility to bring that love outwards and then just invest in our community, be there for other people, for our friends and stuff like that. But this is the type of loneliness that I wanted to talk about. And I started thinking about the way our system is nowadays, like social media, we're connected more than ever, yet so many people are feeling lonely because what happened is, you know, the issue that I'm seeing nowadays is intimacy. It's a lack of intimacy that we're feeling. We're not feeling seen because humans, biologically, we need mirrors. My therapist is always reminding me of that. Whenever I go in my mode, like, how do I do this by myself? People are too unreliable. Again, I'm also guilty of that. Some other people could also say that, Stephanie, you've been unreliable and you weren't present for me at other times. So we always have to remember that everything goes both ways. We're not perfect. That's why I love calling out people, but I also love calling out myself, because at the end of the day, we're all a reflection of one another and we're all in this together, right? So But the issue that I think, the main issue that I think we're having with the whole loneliness thing is it's a lack of intimacy. There's a lot of noise, lots and lots of noise. There is a paradox of choice, a paradox of illusion. But oh my goodness, there's a lack of intimacy. Our intimacy and emotional needs are not being met. This is why I think that we're having this crazy loneliness crisis out there. We're constantly connected, but it's just the connection feels weak. The connection feels empty. The connection feels superficial. So, this is how our day goes. In the modern day, we wake up, we have these beautiful tools that are absolute magical supercomputers that are our cell phones. We have constant notifications all day long. By the way, FYI, all of my notifications are off, turn off, and my phone is on do not disturb most of the time. So am I part of the problem? Yes and no, but I also do think that we just don't have the choice to block the noise because it's never ending. And I noticed the pattern nowadays on WhatsApp. Slowly, businesses are starting to advertise to us on WhatsApp, and this absolutely drives me mad. I don't want to be getting promotions and advertising on my WhatsApp. It's like, no. So we need to always be sure that our boundaries, we're protecting ourselves, our mental health, so we can stay sane because it's such a fine line. It's very easy to tip over. But I'm trying to stay organized with my thoughts here. A typical day goes on with constant notifications. If you're not on top of your game and block them and work actively to block them, constantly intruding your space. Group chats pinging all day. Can you imagine? Group chat weren't always a thing. Group chats, I think, started around the huge thing that happened back in 2020 that shall not be named. I think this is when group chats started being a thing. They were amazing back then because we were like deeply isolated, but then they just stayed, never went away, right? And it's just now we have group chats. It's just anyhow, like I'm not a group chat person. I think it's quite obvious. I'm more of a one-on-one person. This is something I always have to tell people. Like, it's not that I'm unsociable. You want to talk to me? I love people. I really do. One-on-one, you have all my attention. This is what I feel like, it feels meaningful. Like group chats to me are just noise, constant noise. Like everyone talking at the same time. No one is really truly supporting one another. It feels like I'm at an auction and everyone's bidding for for attention. Anyways, I have another episode that I'm going to be doing on WhatsApp because I find WhatsApp is my kryptonite. And at the same time, I'm fascinated by the psychological phenomenon that I think is WhatsApp, our modern day communication tools. So yeah, and then we have endless scrolling. Even if you're not on Instagram, even if you don't use social media, somehow you still gonna find yourself doing endless scrolling. That's just the way things are set up nowadays. And so that's the tension. We're connected everywhere, but at the same time, we're feeling more disconnected at the core. We're feeling disconnected more than ever. What's the problem? You know what I mean? And I think the thing is, the paradox nowadays is there's ambient connection does not equal intimacy. Ambient connection, which means we're always connected, but we're feeling disconnected more than ever. So I like to see social media, but this now I'm mostly thinking about WhatsApp and Telegram, Signal, these type of like, chat apps that I think all of us use them to some extent, at least one of them. If it's not WhatsApp, it's Signal, it's Telegram, one of them, right? And I feel like it's the slow signal that is broadcasting connection, but it lacks intimacy, right? Everyone is reachable, but no one or very few people are actually present, right? You have all these people on your phone, all these group chat, but let's say that one day you really need a friend to be there for you to talk. very little people are available like that. And I always like to remind us that it goes both way. That's why, whenever I sense that people need me, I try my best. Some days it's not easy, but I try my best to be there and reach out and go against the natural tendency to be selfish that is the human way, because we have to remember that we're energies, right? We get what we put out. So we reap what we sow in a way. And if we're complaining that no one is available, then we need to break the chain. We need to start being available, because where is the change going to start? Where is the change going to come from? It has to come from us. It has to come from somewhere. So I try my best. It's not perfect. It's actually far from being perfect. But just a constant reminder that we can't be complaining about others all the time. We also need to step up. We're all guilty here. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It's a collective thing, right? So you included in 3 group chats, but no one actually checks on anyone personally. This is a major trend that I'm seeing going on. Everyone's burnt out. People use group chat as a way to offload hard times they're going through. For example, I noticed that people tend to be like, "Oh, I'm so devastated. I lost a family member," which is a terrible thing to go through. But I kind of find it, how these messages are on the chat more and more, and then the reaction is a heart. At the same time, I understand the other people, because imagine getting these type of comments all day long. So we're kind of like also burnt out. People need to talk. They don't have anyone there to listen to them. It's like a whole mess that is going on. It's crazy. And then there's like a lot of side effects, right? Anxiety, restlessness, that loneliness that doesn't quite go away, and it's not socially acceptable. It's not something that you can say out loud. There's a shame, a low key shame that is attached to it. We're not supposed to talk about it, or people judge you if you're lonely. People think you a lame person. You don't have any friends. How come you're not lonely? Which is not even a lot of single people deal with that, but also a lot of people in relationship deal with loneliness. So it's something that is part of the human condition, but we don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. Why is this happening? Yes, we can blame modern tech. It's just, I really do believe that it's a major part of the modern life, because us humans, we're wired for small group community, and we're literally wired for small group community, intimacy, and one-on-one talk. Doesn't matter if you think you're not an introvert person, you're an extrovert. It doesn't matter. It's just that we're still wired that way. It's just that some people need more of these interactions and some people get by with less. That's it. But it's just like biology, we're kind of like all the same, right? So modern technology makes it like very easy to isolate. Everything is automated. I've been paying attention when I travel to the airport nowadays. Everything is automated, high stress. No one is talking to anyone. There's nothing diffusing the stress. We're like robots in a way. And like social norms have changed. It's like notifications, constant visibility, always on culture. It's fascinating, I find. But again, humans are wired for small emotional interaction, one on one, mirroring each other, feeling that the need to feel seen, and being useful to others. It's like this is how we're wired. Doesn't matter. It's like our technology is outpacing our wiring that is quite basic and quote unquote old school, if you might want to say, because at the end of this day we crave safe connection, and then we also crave togetherness, safe connection, because we are still cavemen. We're just very fancy cavemen nowadays, running around with like a fancy computer in our hands that we can fit in our pockets, but we're still cavemen. We're not that different. There's nothing has really changed there. It was very important back then in our little village, in our little tribes, to be seen. It was a matter of safety, it was a matter of survival, because if the tribe decided you were an outcast, best believe that your chances of survival would pretty much plummet. You know what I mean? So it's all things that are deeply wired in our instinct and our survival mechanism that we're not really fully acknowledging, that we think that, we're modernized now and then we're not the same. But I think this is the reason why we're seeing all these problems that we are seeing in our society nowadays, one of them being the loneliness epidemic that is pretty much all around the place. So the group chats, the DMs, the social feeds, the social media, they give the illusion of connection, but they don't fully fulfill emotional needs, which leaves us where we are. So if you feel drained after scrolling, you're not alone. You're not alone, my love. You're not weak. You only human. Reminds me of that song. I'm only human after all. We're only human. That's it. It's just the way we're made. And so we need to start normalizing this, that we crave depth. I feel like there's such a shame because we're also scared to be needy, which is a big one. We don't want to be needy. We want to be independent and show that we have it all together and all that stuff. But we need to like normalize these conversations more and more. No, it's not only seniors that are dealing with loneliness. I'm not gonna lie, I also was guilty of that. When I started feeling loneliness really recently, to be honest, it took me by surprise because I was always thinking, growing up as a kid, I thought this was a senior people issue, but it's not at all. We even have teenagers that are we hearing that more and more. I feel for these teenagers because they pretty much grew up in the social media. They don't really know what it is to live without social media, which is absolutely wild. They don't know what it is to live without a cell phone, to do life without internet. Wow. So I feel for them. And ironically, it's interesting how we're seeing teenage, crisis linked more and more with loneliness. And we need to have those conversations, because we are wired to crave depth, not just business. And we can't delete that aspect of us, right? And so we need to stop blaming ourselves. No, you're not too sensitive. I literally used to think that it was just the way I was wired. It was because of my astrological sign that I'm so sensitive. I'm so this, I'm so that. But no, I see all around some people are more open to talk about it. Some people have more self-awareness, whereas others would just hide this under busy work, under being super productive, under, other people are less in touch with their emotions, but it's still there. And the funny thing that happened is that what tends to happen to these people is eventually there's, the system, the tower comes crashing down. I'm thinking about the tower card and the tower right now. The system comes crashing down. A lot of time there would be like a major health issue, God forbid. There would be a major burnout at work. Because thing is, we cannot escape ourselves. We can do it temporarily, but eventually things will catch up with ourselves. Our body will slow us down. Our body would pretty much hijack everything and force us to face it. So this is what I think we're trying to do on the platform here, being proactive instead of waiting for crisis. So I know I spend the whole last few minutes complaining. Well, it's not complaining. I like to talk about acknowledging the elephant in the room, because again, the title of the podcast is The Lighthouse. The goal is to bring light in the darkness, right? And I believe we could do that together. So now let's talk about what can we do about that. To be honest, I'm not going to come here and pretend that I have that super powerful, that super magical pill that you can take that's going to make all the problems go away. I think it's all part of the human experience that we come here to explore and then grow through the adversities. However, I do believe that we just being aware of it is half of the battle. It's the first step at least, because again, if you're unaware of it, then I mean, why are we even talking? You won't even be able to acknowledge and see like there's a problem, right? And so it's like an alcoholic who doesn't think they're an alcoholic. Doesn't matter if they're drinking, a bottle of whiskey a day. If they're not acknowledging it, they're in denial. Then, You can't do anything to help them. So here we are acknowledging the elephant in the room. That way we can, you know, strive to improve our lives. And I really do think that, like I said, noticing the disconnect is the first step towards better connection. And another solution that I find is stop prioritizing one-on-one interactions. That's something I started to do through many different ways. If you find that you're struggling with friendship, because I think there's also another imbalance going on with friendship. Too many of us don't prioritize friendship enough. So many of us, once we start having a romantic relationship, we totally forget about our friends. We don't prioritize them, but we need to understand that all of those pieces of the puzzles are equally important. You can't not expect one person to fulfill all your emotional needs in the balanced world. You would have your, if you have a relationship, that's amazing, but your family is important also. If you don't have family, your chosen family, your friends and people that are there for you are important. Interaction that you go through, those classes that you go through on a weekly basis. For some people, it's Pilates, it's yoga, a book club, a walk club, you know, anything, honestly. All of these things are all part of the system and they're all equally important. So we need to start prioritizing human connection also. Now, I do believe that the internet is amazing. I have a few community group that I meet up with, very small, intimate group where we exchange things. These people are pillars in my life because it's always the same recurring faces. However, I do believe that we need to make an effort to see people, to have a support system, a physical support system in real life, because us human, we need to have that physical, real life mirroring, making sure that we're not just isolating ourselves into a virtual world. So I really do think, like I said, prioritizing one-on-one interaction, and that could also be through like therapy, like having a therapist that see you, that you enter, that you build a relationship with. That could also be a coach, you know. But I'm also aware that all of these things cost money. So if you don't have the financial means to afford all these things, like, do prioritize, find other ways to build your support system, depending on what country you live in. Like I know in Canada and in the US also, and many countries in Europe, have a great scene when it comes to the website meetup.com. I'm not affiliated with them, by the way. It's just I remember using Meetup a couple of times back then in Montreal, and it's amazing. And also, I remember seeing so many amazing groups coming out. I remember last summer seeing a hiking group come up, you know, and of course they always max out, because again there is a need for that, there's a hunger for that. There's also that other group that I really really love. I'm not affiliated with them, once again, I just use them personally and I love them. Art Girl, they are on social media and they have a website. It's Art Girl, and then they do virtual meeting, but they also do real life meeting. If you happen to be in New York, they meet up like a few times a month. People gather and then do book scrapping with them, journaling, and these events are always sold out. Again, there is a need for real life human interaction. We are starved. So do find, I hope you're living in a place where you can have access to these things, and don't despair. Keep looking. As long as the desire is there, something will come up and will open up in your field. Like I said, half of the battle is acknowledging the issue. That way we can tackle it and not let it ruin our life on autopilot. And also, you don't want to make the mistake of feeding it, with more broken system. Like, if you feeling yourself lonely, be careful not to just try to cover that loneliness with more scrolling on Instagram, with more, because this is what created the problem for the first place. It's only gonna make things worse. So we need to counterbalance it. I'm not telling you to stop using, your social media. This is not what I'm telling you. Each person has to make their own decision. But if you find yourself dealing with loneliness, you need to take the time, assess everything, assess your patterns, your habits, your tendencies, and then find a way to add more relational, preferably real life contact points, and extra points if it's the same people that are like regularly meeting up, because as humans it's not just baby, we need that like regulation, we need that mirroring. For somehow we all understand that for babies and kids, but somehow we think like once we're adult it's just none of these things apply. Yes, we're more independent as adult, but we're still operating on the same system. So treat yourself like a a kind, as if you were like a little one, and then you have to look up for your needs and find a way to like, you know, to cover those needs in a way that is nourishing for you. And again, I find that it all comes back down to community, people. It's crazy. We get lost in details, but often it just comes back down to that, to sharing, to loving, to more, spending more time, getting out of our mind, getting out of our brain, getting out of our heads, and meeting up other people. Yes, we're scared to be hurt. Yes, people are flaky, but that is just part of the human condition. So find ways. The way I've been approaching it nowadays is system, because I went through a period of my life where I was constantly contacting a few people, and then they were not available, and they would straight up, like, I remember after my surgery I was in such a dark place. Again, it's just like I have a few episodes on that if you want to hear it and listen to that. And I remember like a couple of time one time reaching out to someone, and that person straight up told me they weren't available. And that was really, really hurtful because I was in such a dark place. Now I'm not, again, like, I don't know what the other person was going through. Maybe they were also going through a hard place. This is, sadly, it's part of the limitation of being human. That was really hard for me that time, recovering from my surgery with all the hormonal, like, up and downs that were going at the same time. But now I'm also approaching, yes, I'm here talking that we need humans, we need other humans, but I was also hurt too. So I understand why we're like a little bit, we don't want to rely too much on people. I'm trying to approach it now as system. I should probably make a whole other episode on that, because honestly, you know it's worth talking about, because this is such a huge issue, the loneliness thing. But lately, I've been approaching it like a system. So instead of putting such a burden on one person to be a good friend that shows up, because the problem also, even if you find the good friend, the problem that we will also always, not always, I take that back. The one of the issue that we will often encounter is consistency, is the lack of consistency, right? So what I've been doing lately is approaching it as system. So I'm not chasing humans per se. I'm chasing systems that come with humans. I know it's crazy. I know it's absolutely crazy. For example, you can see it as relational systems, right? That could be one of those systems. The whole like therapy and coaching unit. They're consistent. the the giveaway is that you need money for that. But like if you could, budget, like a specific budget for that, that can buy you consistency. Another thing, like, I'm also saying systems, like, let's say adding touch points right in the week. So let's say you can commit to, like, I'm going to go to a yoga class, you know, X times a week. Like, I'm going to go to yoga class 3 times a week. From the research I was doing, it seems that if someone is dealing with loneliness, trying to have at least a physical touch point, by touch point I mean meeting up with other human beings, at least every 48 hours. So if you could have 3 times a week where you meet up with people, that should be easing the loneliness drastically. That is literally what I'm testing right now. I've been testing in my life. This is what I'm saying. Those episodes are not random. These are things that I'm actually going through in life for real. And I'm constantly troubleshooting. And then I come here and report. So let me know if you've been dealing with that. What have been your findings? What have you been doing to deal with this? But yes, I should make a whole separate episode on that. But I do notice that having at least 3 touch points a week seems to drastically reduce, if not make it go like, I would not say 100% away, but at least 90% away, because I don't want to get into that right now. So yes, systems, right? Systems. Oh my goodness, I totally derailed from my outline. Let's just stop pretending that I'm following an outline right now. So systems, right? Like I said, instead of lamenting that you don't have any friends, which I've done in the past, by the way, or like friends are flaky and blah, 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 instead try to approach it as okay, you need human proximity. You need, to interact with other humans for them to reflect back to you, for you to reflect back to them. This is what will appease that loneliness because loneliness lives inside of our body. That's what is going to appease that. The same way how a baby needs, human, they need their parents to help them regulate. We're not so much different. So I've been approaching it as systems because I need consistency in my life. I cannot do with inconsistency like that, and that also keeps your nervous system on high alert because it still sees that the need is not being met. So for example, you could say, okay, I'm going to see a therapist. I don't know how much you can afford, once a week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, once a month. That is one thing, and then you slowly start adding up to that. Okay, maybe let's say you could add you know one yoga class a week. You start with that. Two yoga classes a week. You mix it up with dance classes. I find out amazing. Oh my goodness, they're amazing mood booster. So you go, I have a salsa class that I love going to. Let's say you go in salsa class on Friday. I swear that thing, that energy, the togetherness that you feel literally can carry you for like 3 days. And then you put another touch point. It could be, I don't know, you go to like a swimming class in a group, a walking group that you go meet up once a week, a book club, you go meet up once a week. And a lot of these things you can find around for free or very, very low cost. So these are all ways that I would recommend that you tackle the loneliness issue. On that note, also, if you need help to figure out more about like your own specific needs, like I said, I always talk about like birth chart reading. I think every single person should get a birth chart reading because also it's gonna really show you like what are some like strength that you have that you could use to counterbalance that issue, and also like what are some things that some other like dark spot, I mean weaker spot that you need to be aware of and constantly monitor so that way you can stay balanced and thrive. So all these are in the links below, and also I do have my free 5 day training. It's totally free to help you gain back your power by making sure that you're not leaking energy in your day-to-day life. All of these links are down below. On that note, like I said, leave me a comment. I'd love to know like how you've been dealing with loneliness, what you've been doing about that. And I would like to start reading back those comments and sharing them on the podcast because I like this to be more of a community conversation instead of just me sitting here and blabbering all day long. A girl likes to talk, but it would be so much more fun and, inserting like a bit of everyone's energy into the podcast. On that note, my love, I will see you in the next one. Keep shining bright like a diamond. Bye.